That's right, to see who starts the lower bracket run, or at least the run towards Worlds here in our season finals. I'm Hysterics and joined by Dagda, and someone who's been, you know, kind of on the edge throughout the past couple of weeks, bought too many Worlds tickets, been harassed a bit for it. But for now, you know, he's just kind of getting through the day and joining us.
Why are you spreading misinformation?
Because I heard the call the other day and it was just so worthwhile.
He doesn't have World Gun Buddies. Or he doesn't have World 6, he has Gun Buddies.
I do have those, actually.
If you want those, talk to Vedius as well. But coming back to SK, I mean, SK versus BDS should be a good matchup, and it is good to have both of you here because this is a matchup that is both exciting but sad. The fact that we lose BDS, how can it not be both?
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah. So it's already a good start.
I thought you were like directing like, oh yeah, these teams have not been playing well. I thought that was the angle you were going with.
I mean, to be fair, that's also true.
But you're right. It's pretty much the last best of 5 that one of these two teams will be playing.
Yep.
The fight for Worlds has only gotten harder, given that G2 has been locked down into the lower bracket.
Oh yeah.
So even if they do win today, that fight is going to be a difficult one. But let's see what they've been able to cook up, because we did see BDS last week fumble against Fnatic in a 3-0 fashion, whereas SK have had time to prep and be ready for a BDS that have kind of had all of their biggest weaknesses exposed.
Yeah, I'm really curious how both teams have improved since the last time we saw them, because I think for SK it was moments where they were overextending side lanes, getting too excited, ended up losing out then to KC, whereas for BDS, I mean, you heard it talked about between the GB and Finn, just how objective setup, which was a big strength for them, really wasn't against Fnatic, and Fnatic were able to punish incredibly well, alongside being able to punish Adam on side lane. So there are definitely big step-ups that I'll be keeping my eye out for when we get to this mid-game.
Because that's disappointing, isn't it? When we saw the evolution of BDS through this split, and again, every time I talk about this, I'm like, well, Dagda told me this. And it was exactly true that there was this development in how they played the game. You know, they're a little bit more versatile. Their early game development was especially there. But we could always rely on BDS coming back to team fights and being reliable there. That not being the case now throws doubt in as we go into pick ban. It is, once again, a triple AD carry start here as we go through the early phase.
I do wonder how high on the priority list this Rell is going to be when we think about Labrov. That has been one of his best performing champions in summer.
And just a reminder that Aurora is globally banned, so she will not be played here.
And just another reminder as well, I believe that this typo is actually 14-15. We're not on 14-13. Yes. That was, funnily enough, the last time SK Gaming played. And as Dagda reminded me, they skipped a patch. But again, that's how long it's been. 27th of July was the last time they picked up the game.
The Analyst ban has heavily suggested SK is thinking about the Rell first pick. With a lot of the OPs open, I do wonder if this will be the priority. Rumble, we saw how that seems to be lower on the priority list here in Europe, but still very powerful top lane pick for sure. Is what will this first pick be for SK?
It's also the Ezreal left open as well, so I'm curious if you want to try and take that, because the Rell priority goes down if you've got the Ezreal at least who's able to try and play it back, but Rell is still an incredibly strong pick, so there isn't many options available, and will be the Rell, and there's the Ezreal taking the meat.
And I think so many teams have learnt the mistake of giving that to Labrov, right? So taking it away, to me, seems like a really good start for SK, but on the other side, Maokai has been a must-ban through many different regions at the moment, and Ezreal still a premier AD carry to lock in both.
Yeah, and now it becomes a question of what do you want to try and take into the mid lane, because one of the things we've seen is that Isma hasn't been so good at taking a lot of the AP junglers. He's gone towards Nidalee's and Diana's, but hasn't looked incredibly comfortable on them, to be perfectly honest. So is it going to be Nisqy going back towards the more control mage style, or do we get some sort of mix-up here with the Rumble taken away?
I wonder if... Yeah, the question is, do you lock in an AD carry here to guarantee yourself a strong bot side of the map for Rahel and Luon? Kai'Sa is something we've been seeing a lot from Rahel. You could assume that Ice is going to be the one playing it. Lucian, on the other hand, very likely going to be put in the mid lane from Nisqy. We haven't actually seen it so far from him in summer, but we know that he is a proficient Lucian.
Yeah, and I think basically the game plan here for SK is, look, we'll end up taking Sejuani or something, if that's not banned away by BDS, into the jungle. We still have our AP heavy style coming through from Irrelevant, so we should be okay. And it means that then you're still able to play these double AD carry picks, but I am curious to start to move on through what that game plan is going to be, because if I'm BDS, I definitely start to target things like the Sejuani jungle, maybe even the Vi as well, just to try and get Isma away from some of these comfort picks.
Track that a little bit closer, because again, Isma's champion pool, I know it's something that we're going to kind of unpack a little bit. And what his champion pool is currently doing for SK. One of them taken away is the Vi setup that comes through when this team does need more follow-up CC, right, on top of the Rell. What else do we need to look at here as SK start thinking about what solo laners need to be taken away if that is not going to be an Ezreal mid?
Yeah, with the Nart already banned away, Cassante could be a solid option for SK. But right now they're looking at mids. They want to try and limit Nuke's pool. Of course, there's always the possibility that this Ezreal could be put into the mid lane, but wouldn't surprise me if something like the Corki was also taken away from the side of SK if they just want to try and narrow down the mid lane options. Sejuani is the natural follow-up from the Vi, really limiting any sort of hard CC from the jungle role. Both Vi and Sejuani can do a great job of locking down the Ezreal, which has now been mitigated. So Ice, assuming that he is playing this champion, is going to have a lot of freedom in the lane.
I'm curious how Isma wants to try and approach this, because there is always an angle for a Poppy here as well, with the amount of, you know, denying Rakan, denying Maokai engage and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as Hysterics already said, I think you do want some sort of follow-up engage.
Victor.
Or something along the lines. So I think you still need that for SK.
What patch are we on, Vedius?
14, 15.
Yeah,
I don't
well said.
remember any Victor changes, but I'm assuming that there's some solo queue tech that's been going on that, in any case, SK showcasing some element of prep in terms of what Nuke has been cooking in the mid lane. Is this going to be the Yone lock-in for Nuke? We've been seeing it rise in popularity all across the world. It's a very powerful champion.
This again.
Did get some buffs. Also, I think that she's a champion that can do very well into many AD mid lane matchups, especially the miasma, limiting the mobility that these AD carry mids often take advantage
Now
of.
you're gonna have to help me. Was it the Fnatic series in the upper bracket that we saw this? Because again, we have already seen this at least in playoffs. And to correct myself, I believe it was actually the set playoffs. I've already worked. Don't worry, Dagda. It's fine. We've already seen this. This was Nuke's speciality. And seeing it again against a dashing mid, I'm excited. We can break that down further, but for now, both of you gentlemen were alluring to the fact that for Rahel, the Kai'Sa is one of his favorites, sets up nicely with this Rell support.
It does mean when you get into team fights, like you are going to be relatively short range with the Lucian and that Kai'Sa. You can play some poke with Cullion and the Void missiles, but you're kind of playing into the hands and extended team fights into this Cassiopeia. So I'm kind of surprised they're continuing on towards the dive, especially with the Nocturne. Now, Isma was a very proficient Nocturne player coming in from a Mia Masters. It was his signature pick. We're going to have to see how we can do here, but I'm not sure on coming into this draft from BDS thus far.
I'm curious as to how BDS, I was going to say Casante's probably the likely blind. He's just the kind of fits-all champion. Works in most comps. It is Adam's most played so far of summer and season finals as well. He's just been playing it a lot, and it is, of course, very safe. So BDS going for what you would describe as a very traditional teamfight composition. You've got scaling mid laner, scaling AD carry, relatively weak laning phase for the bot side of the map for BDS. Also, their top side is very prone to getting pushed in. So SK should have a lot of luxury. I would imagine the early levels to the Lucian should be able to bully out that Cassio as well, because she can be relatively mana-starved, even if she does go for an early tier. So SK have a lot of lanes that they can play around, but I agree with you when you kind of look at this composition, Dagda, you sit there and think to yourself, well, they do have elements of dive. I see Rumble, Nocturne, Kai'Sa, I can see that working. Lucian also relatively short range alongside the Kai'Sa. Their siege might be a little bit difficult, but ultimately they do want to get into the face of their opposition. But Maokai, Cassio, these champions love it when you close the gap against them, because then they get to utilize all of their utility and damage. So yeah, I have mixed opinions, definitely, on this SK.
A lot of no buttons, I think, is what I'll take from the back of that as well, right? A lot of no buttons that come from BDS, where a lot of the Cassio that comes into the context of that no button that stops dashes, that stops jump-ins for the engage tools that SK will be relying on.
I think there is a lot of ways to try and avoid team fights though, as SK here, where if you get a lead with Nisqy, if you get a lead with Irrelevant, try and play through sides, use Isma's ultimate to then dive on towards those sides if people are overextended, or look for picks and jungles. So I think there is ways for SK to try and play around it, but it does heavily rely on them getting an early lead, and I think that's where SK need to put their foot down in these early stages.
Well, as we get into game, guess what? You can clap, you can cheer, you can get excited for SK BDS. But we have a pause! Yoo! Okay, it's resuming. Never mind, we're getting into game. BDS.
You sound less excited about the fact that the game is resuming.
No, I definitely prefer this than the pause. But again, I said before, it's exciting and it's sad. Vedius got confused, but I can elaborate for you further. The loser here is out, and BDS SK, at multiple points in the year, we were saying things like, whoa, SK are like our third best team. Oh, this team could be consistently top 3, as we saw in their playoffs runs, or at least their attempts at the end of split. And then with BDS, we're assuming that this team is also going to be outside the realms of G2 Fnatic. But one of them goes home. One of them, the year just ends again with such a break and such a gap before they can play in 2025.
I mean, let's not forget that at the end of the summer split, these two teams were tied at the top of the table, 8-1.
Yep.
Oh.
We're full invading, aren't we? For Sheo and Nuke, I mean, level 1 into Noxious Blast to the Cassiopeia, so no Twin Fang, which means Nuke has to flash away. All he can do is Q and buy time, but getting the flash out of the mid Cassio, that's one way to start off for SK.
You also see Adam looking for the reset in topside, so is there a potential now? I wasn't sure if they're going to try and lane swap off the back of that just to try and get Adam out of this bad matchup, but nice job from SK getting in, getting that burnt flash from Nuke. Isma will be a little low on his clear, but I'd still take that every day of the week.
I think the main idea there is to just punish the flashless Adam, right? Just head up towards the top side of the map, take advantage of the fact that if he's kind of sleeping at the wheel in game 1, maybe they can find a quick pick. They end up getting a flash out from Nuke, which should allow Nisqy to get this early prio. We need to come back to that point because this priority is going to be very important when it comes to the early laning phase. One thing I will say is that Nocturnes, I think, haven't been super impressive in the LEC.
True.
He's a champion that is, in a way, very high risk, high reward because he's quite one-dimensional in that he goes in, and then once he's in, he's not coming out. And so coordination is super important, but also something that Dagda mentioned is attacking sides is super important. Once you get level 11, once you get a lot of cooldown knocked off the ultimate, it's a very effective tool at attacking these side lanes. And hang on.
Labrov in a bit of trouble. The Ignite comes down. That's a great trade from Rahel and Luon. Labrov will have pots to heal up, and remember, he did take heal into this battle as well.
And it feels like Rahel and Luon are kind of coming back to form. We saw in their last series, they had that solo duo killing that bot lane as well. So I think this is where my eyes are going to be looking to see how Ice and Labrov do fend this off, because Ice had a little bit of a dodgy time the last series that he played. So,
like it.
So I'm looking forward to seeing him trying to get back to form here as well as Adam takes a lot of damage.
Good trade.
I mean, GV and Finn showcased some of the stats differences.
Yep.
Rumble versus Cassante is going to do a lot for relevant stats. I can tell you that right now. This matchup is not a fun one, but Adam running the exhaust should give him some outplay potentials later as Isma makes his way into BDS's side of the jungle. Luon already on his way up as Labrov tries to assist.
Remember as well, there is a summoner difference. Ignite was put down by Luon, so this becomes a 2v2. The heal will give a bit of sustain to Sheo as Smite comes down and he gets the Gromp. Blue buff, though, is the exchange, and Isma takes that away. So it's still a 1-for-1 trade, but he's got his full bot side jungle to clear, while now Sheo, 1 camp left remaining.
And it goes back to what Vedius was talking about. SK, prio mid, prio bot, use that to invade. Nicely done by Isma to just take advantage of those. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this try and continue. Is you can fall back into your own jungle here, take your camps, reset, and then try and contest those camps on the bot side as they respawn as well.
Honestly, this game is going to be a great indication of how much growth SK have actually made, because this is very similar to the game that they threw against KC. They had winning lanes across the board.
Flash burnt out already. Nisqy just jumps in.
I mean, he's got to respect it against Isma. But we'll see if they can leverage this early lane, convert it into an early lead, and then close out the game, because that is what they ultimately failed to do against KC in the first game, and then they ultimately ended up losing the series as a result.
Game 3 as well. They had a lead in every single one of those games, but couldn't find the success in the mid game, and it came back to bite them. So I think that's where I want to see that success, and kind of vice versa for BDS is going back to where BDS always felt like a team that even when they were down, were never out. They could find these big fights, they could find that moment to come back, but instead now it feels like they're kind of getting caught out at their objective setup instead.
BDS were the most frustrating team for that reason. It was class act in the mid game when they always found that fight, as you said, but it's always frustrating to be like, how did they find it? Again, without that reliability for BDS, it seems quite negative, but I'm glad we are talking a little bit about some of these win conditions, because again, for SK, since we haven't seen them for so long, as Sheo sneaks up to topside, but again, there's a ward up here for Irrelevant, so he's going to be fine. Again, we talk about the individual powerhouse, especially on SK's side. Irrelevant with the wave right now. I mean, he's been holding it here for a while, and you can see he's up about 5 CS, as Adam just has to push and pull.
That's a good freeze off there, which is going to make it even more painful for Adam. They know Sheo's up here as well, which then opens up Isma to do whatever he wants, and you can already see the pings coming in from Sheo. He's like, I need to get to my bot side to defend my wolves that have just respawned, because chances are they're going to try and look for invade, but the lanes aren't really in position for it yet.
Notice as well how Irrelevant not using his flame spitter on the wave at all. He's walking up and he's threatening with the harpoon.
Yep.
And then when he connects the first harpoon, Adam is forced to disengage, and that's when Irrelevant uses the flame spitter. So he's doing as much as he can to avoid passively chipping away at those minions so they can keep this freeze for as long as possible and keep the bullying up.
And Vedi, you know what I love about it as well, is we get get a mid lane gank to pause. Isma flashes in. He's going to get a fear straight away. Good disengage from support, but it might not matter. First blood goes down. Nisqy capitalizes big, and they're on the board.
Great timing there. You can see Isma was like, that flash is still down. I know Nuke doesn't have it. So Isma able to get in, gets that fear off, and sets up perfectly for Nisqy to get that kill. Rise boy grub spots.
The flash was just about to come up for Nuke. The timing was spectacular there for SK. And the play was nice. Support, Labrov did his best to try and keep his mid laner alive. Unfortunately, it just wasn't quite enough. 3 versus 2 just gives SK that advantage. Now look at the top of your screen, 1K. A lot of that sitting on the top laner and mid lane at the top side of the map, going very well within the first 6 minutes of the game for SK.
Seeing Nisqy in charge is also another breath of fresh air when we talk about SK and the carry that has been relied on. Even before Rahel and Luon were there, right? I think Nisqy had some beautiful splits throughout the year. We were talking to him about being one of the best mid laners in the league. Guys, I also want to mention that time we talked about at the start of the game is coming up. Level 6 is now here for Isma. He's just actually turned it, as you can see on the left side of your screen. So a lot of those go buttons, a lot of those big tempo ultis are now up and available for SK to try and advance the game further.
Top lane could be an option for SK. No flash on the Kai'Sa, of course. As a champion, he has a lot of tools to avoid certain ganks, so even if he doesn't have the flash, he could very well still be safe. But with the equalizer used for him, irrelevant to quickly push this wave into it and grab himself a plate, it seems unlikely that that is going to be where they look for a gank. Either way, SK, as you rightly said, have a lot of options, and this is where BDS probably have to be the most cautious, because even though the story has mainly been about SK in this early game, it's because of all the prio that they have, it's the control of the waves. BDS just want to weather the storm, mitigate this deficit as much as they can, and about 2k gold deficit, that's kind of what you'd expect.
Yep.
And now they want to try and hold that and not allow it to get any bigger.
Yeah, and it's so hard for BDS to try and make a play, because even if you go bot, because Irrelevant is consistent in pushing, he can always TP to a bot lane play, and it's actually SK that are maybe starting things off as Isma is here to support Luon, but it looks like it's just going to be a dragon take, essentially using the fact that they do have that TP advantage for Irrelevant.
You see Labrov is thinking about ways to maybe come in, pick off a source for the meantime, but Nisqy walks down, he's got everything up and available. BDS just hovering, but they're on vision. For now, SK still too strong, still too comfortable. They get both 3 grubs and the first dragon of the game. As Vedius said before, it's going as you'd expect, but for SK, that's good news.
Certainly is. SK should feel pretty happy with how things have gone so far. You kind of draw your eyes towards the top left of your screen. 2 minutes until the next grub spawn will be SK's next objective. In the meantime, they're going to continue to farm. You'd expect those first items to be completed in the near future as well. And BDS, their priority is just continue to scale. The easiest way, if you know very little about League of Legends, to identify a scaling composition is you look at the bottom of your screen and you'll see 2 tiers stacking on the side of BDS, and that's generally a good indication of we're just waiting. We'll see you guys in about 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, I think they're just going to take it easy, and I think it then becomes a case of how do SK break this, and a lot of that is going to be, well, Void Grubs now in a minute 20, let's try and play for that, see if you can get push on mid so then you can secure that, use that opportunity then to start chipping away at some of these turrets, see if you can get turret plates, but I think the big one is going to be that Rift Herald. Yep. If you can start to crack open off the back of the pressure that you, or crack open turrets off the back of the pressure you've already created, that is where SK can actually start to snowball this game effectively and look to play in towards those side lane opportunities.
And I know there's someone on our desk who had an identity of being a Nocturne mid main for quite a long time. Now,
true.
I don't know if that's changed. You said Akali's your favorite now or something.
Well, actually, Nocturne was never my favorite champion.
Well, you shouldn't say that live, but
he was just, no, he was just what I used to climb the ladder, because he was OP as hell. And then they nerfed his passive, and he wasn't OP in mid anymore.
And you know, I had a really good question to ask you, and I've completely forgotten it, because I was kind of disappointed the fact you don't play it anymore.
I still know everything there is to know about Nocturne.
First couple of ults crucial, we know that. That's the first tick, right? But we also know opening up mid.
Food.
Sorry?
Favorite food.
Favorite food?
Yeah.
He doesn't eat.
Doesn't he?
Nope, because he's like a monster of shadow.
So he doesn't mean he can't
have
eat.
a digestive system.
Maybe he eats light.
He maybe devours souls, but I don't know if he like sustains himself off of them.
Well, good question from Dagda. I was going to say something game related and say that once turrets open up, once the map and you get deep vision, Vedi, it feels like that's a very good place to start in a very easy way to exemplify your lead.
Yeah, so the problem with SK's comp is that they are relatively short range. So sieging is a difficult thing for them to do. But sieging is not the priority right now. It is going to be these grubs. keeping my eyes on the minimap to see if BDS is even in a position to contest, and I don't think that they are, but...
They think they are at the very least. I mean, Adam, remember, has to run in with only exhaust. Paranoia comes through. True Shot Barrage flies in, but does nothing. But for now, they get them off the zone of grubs as Isma jumps back on in. The Equalizer down as well. The Shattering Strike lines them up. The Magnet Storm zones them in. The Petrifying Gaze sets them out, though. BDS have weathered the storm at least at the start of the fight, but the problem is Nisqy is cleaning up. Pro was looking for his 1000th kill, but he's gone above and beyond as he flashes out and gets out of the back end of the fight. As Ice and Sheo getting chased down by this angry, light-eating monster. No wonder Vedi played it. It cleans house.
SK decimate BDS at those Void Grubs. It was a decent up from Sheo to start, but you just could not stop the onslaught. Nisqy secures his 1000th LEC kill.
Absolutely crazy team fight for SK. I mean, the priority of BDS ended up putting them in a very awkward position where I just wanted to see and keep track of Irrelevant's ultimate. So the Rumble is coming in from the bottom of the river, a lot of attention turns onto the Nocturne, and then look at this Rumble ultimate, initially connecting onto 3, and then the Rell ultimate to combo it does so much damage to Nuke. He then flashes away, at the very least he's able to trade his life for the AD carry, but Irrelevant is now completely untouched. All of this damage is free to just tear BDS apart, and then the chase down comes through. I think BDS is target focused. They just weren't clear on how best to execute this fight. And you gotta remember, finding a Rumble at this point in the game always gonna be a dangerous thing to do.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like, this is a position where SK are just significantly stronger than you. They didn't have to stop off for the tiers that Vedi was talking about earlier. You've got a Rumble that's already in a great spot. It was a bizarre position for BDS to feel like they needed to fight. Like, sure, try and stop some of the Void Grubs, but you take away one, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, and you've just put yourself so heavily behind when it comes to that gold.
I imagine the idea was that they realized that they were obviously bleeding a lot, right? And so they wanted to try and stop the bleeding as much as they could, and maybe they thought that they could catch SK off guard. But,
that went great for them.
Yeah, it didn't work out. But I mean, this is the risk, right? Ultimately, if you go too far into the scaling end, a team that knows how to leverage these early leads can build these very significant gold advantages and really snowball the game. So SK beginning to do that. Obviously, this is only the first step of this composition.
Yep.
Building leads, you could argue, is the easy part. The hard part is being able to convert that lead into a victory.
True.
But nothing really to criticize SK for so far. They played a clean early game. Their laning phase has been good. They found a nice gank in mid lane, punishing Nuke's lack of flash. And now Nocturne, when he turns to level 11, that ultimate is going to be up that much more often, and flashless champions become easy targets, especially with the setup that SK have.
And you've 2 accelerated solo laners. 3 kills on towards both. They're going to be so strong when it comes to being able to dictate the pace of a side lane. And if you ever get them low, great, Isma, come in over the top. You just finish off whoever's low, and suddenly we have a numbers advantage on the map. This is a great spot for SK to be in. All they really need to do now is look towards that Rift Tower that's about to spawn, try and knock down some of these turrets so they can really open up the map and allow Isma to play through that strength.
Well, as teleport comes down bot, you can see BDS again. We've used the terminology of weathering the storm, but they're trying to get some of the push out here as they commit more and more members. But it is going to be a trade up topside. And remember, they've got 4 grubs on the side of SK2 as plating has just fallen down. But Nisqy does good damage. Culling comes through. Luon is here and just helps out with a bit of damage on turret himself. Here comes the Paranoia too. Luon still tanking up, buying time, but the dive is not complete. Gets a little bit messy at the end as they just need to finish Adam off.
He has the TP though, and he's going to use it to get away to safety.
Bye.
SK don't quite find the kill that they were looking for, but they do get all the summoners out from Adam, and they'll get the tower, which was their primary target, alongside the Herald, which is going to be massive for opening up this mid tower. We talked about how SK's range is relatively short with the Lucian and the Kai'Sa. To go underneath the tower against the Cassio is a very scary thing to do. This Herald is going to make it that much easier to break that open, and then talk about what you were talking about earlier, Hysterics, which is have access to the jungle, and then subsequently those side lanes.
Plus, I feel like not having teleport available now for any of your side lanes for BDS, no response, no matching, no denial for the trades. Like, I think, again, we can praise SK for the overall plays. They pick up the Herald, and we start counting down that Dragon timer that will lead them to Soul Point. We start looking for that enveloping a vision that starts getting deeper and deeper as well.
And I like the way SK have opened up on the map. They shifted Nisqy down to that bottom lane because Irrelevant is going to be able to push in that top side. And Irrelevant on a potential dive, being able to use that ultimate to zone away members is going to be crucial if BDS try and defend that mid lane tower when you go for that Rift Tower play. So I think at the moment, SK setting up nicely for a mid game, which has been criticized in the past.
All good for now. It's only the start, and again, in this best of 5. I was hoping for a doozy. I was hoping for a banger that went back and forth, and I was honestly hoping for the best of BDS today as well, which again, their comp sets them up to do. It's a classic BDS comp, like a broken record. This Herald gets dropped down in the mid lane, but hey, I'm happy to ride this Herald right into the mid lane turret if I'm SK, because the damage they do right now with Nisqy, although short range we talked about, at least it's still being done as the turret won't fall, but it gets close.
I think they were a little bit preemptive with that, because you could see in the top side, Irrelevant hadn't really pushed in, so it meant that BDS were able to shift Adam down. There was no pressure really on the bottom side either, so Nuke was able to come across. So BDS were able to defend it, so you don't quite get the tower, but it is so low. Another play from SK should be able to take that down, but I think this is where, again, just a little bit of patience could have helped out SK.
I wonder if SK will turn their attention to the bot tower. Right now they're keeping Irrelevant top. Of course, he does have that TP. But with the Vision setup and the resets coming through, it looks like Nisqy's just going to catch this wave. And SK's priority right now is going back to base, spending a little bit more of that gold. Replenish on the control wards, and be ready for the ensuing dragon fight. Objective control really has been extraordinary so far from SK. They've really leveraged their pushing lanes. We haven't seen... I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I don't think a Nocturne ultimate has been needed based on what we've seen so far, but you could always argue that, sure, there's room for him to be able to use that more often. But right now, I have no major criticisms. BDS are ultimately just kind of waiting for a mistake from SK. Maybe they can find a pick, maybe they can find a misstep in terms of the execution. If they can steal away a dragon, that would already be a huge step in just delaying the game.
I do love how the Nocturne main is, there's always room for Nocturne.
There's always room for an ult.
But I think in the position that they're in, again, you're kind of in a weird spot here as SK. Nisqy needs to move down to try and catch this wave and push it out. BDS had a nicer back timing, so are able to get out onto the map and start to shove these waves in. So should be able to get Vision down, although Labrov looking for a reset himself, so will be at a numbers disadvantage on the map for the moment.
You know what I do hate when we're speaking about Vision, though? The fact that Maokai does counter some of the points. You know, Maokai Vision with saplings is another reason why he's so relevant, so powerful at the moment. And it's frustrating when you're like, okay, SK now are looking for River priority because 20 seconds till Dragon. Sheo spots them out, and SK doing their due diligence, clearing away the Vision they can get rid of. As wards galore, you can see surrounding the area while Rahel waits for mid lane wave.
They're losing a lot of gold on this bottom side, though. That's two waves now that are about to hit into that bot lane turret. And Nisqy should have moved down to try and collect that, but now with Dragon spawning BDS, just going to try and play it slow here, so should win off of gold if this fight goes their way as well.
Luon trying to come in on the flank. Sheo is wary of it. Nuke has the miasma to deny that.
One with the flash available as well, waiting for a Magnet Storm. Irrelevant, just sitting on the back, thinking about that equalizer as well. 3k now as Nature's Grasp was out in the one flash. Magnet Storm hits nothing! Absolutely nothing! And guess what? Sheo gets a dragon! Luon's gonna die. Isma on the back end is taken down by Adder, or at least close to it. The three-man knockup, a BDS team fight! The petrifying gaze has us stunned!
It's a phenomenal team fight from BDS. Just like that, the whole game has been flipped on its head. This was the type of opportunity they were looking for, and it's Nuke's Cassio that gets BDS a triple kill.
What a classic.
It's the BDS speciality, man.
Dagda with a sigh.
It's so good to see the team fighting with Spectacular. They'd set up the waves well. They'd gone for a reset timing that set them up so they could get out on the map, set up their vision, get that bot wave pushed in, and puts pressure onto SK on the game state to actually make something happen. And then Luon tries his damnedest, but there's no follow-up at all there. He completely whiffs because the Nocturne ult means he can't see anything. The Irrelevant ult follows up as well, it goes completely wide. And then watch Labrov here. The flash in, the triple knock-up, the follow-over flash from Nuke with that Cassiopeia means that then they're able to just tear through the members of SK.
Like, it's important to remember that BDS's comp is very much about team fighting, right? So if you can find that right angle, you chain your CC together and you just avoid that initial dive, SK become very limited on what they can actually do to respond, partially because of their range, but also because they're very reliant on these type of combos with Rell and the Rumble, maybe even the culling, chunking someone out, the Kai'Sa being able to use the dive. All of that was largely used defensively. And again, this idea, one of the high-level Nocturne things you can do is you create that fog of war so that your teammates can find angles. We see it all the time with Nico, we've seen it with cannons, right? The whole idea is to find that flank, and Luon tried to leverage that, But if you don't connect, then the team fight never really comes through.
And I come back to what you guys were saying, not only the fact that BDS were buying their time, but now as they siege through mid, that this team, you know, at 2-3 items starts becoming more and more impactful, that the Dragon denial would also slow down the game. They've caught back up in gold. And the final thing that I remember, because again, I do listen to you guys, whether you doubt that or not.
Occasionally.
Occasionally, most of the time, is that you told me that again, if they were only a couple of K down coming into the mid game, that things will be all right. And BDS are only 1,000 gold down now, sieging mid, opening up, even finding a play with a charm down as well with Luon dying, paranoia into the backline, but Isma's alone. The equalizer comes afterwards, and now Sheo's getting burnt from the wing, but it's not enough damage. They've run out of range, and they are getting punished. Rahel runs in with a killer instinct, and even though Petrifying Gaze doesn't connect from Nuke, BDS are doing more than enough here in this game one that's turned on its head.
It's desperation from SK trying to find something back. Those low health bars were so tantalizing, but they just can't quite get the damage in ice. Starts to land a bit of hits onto Nisqy, but still BDS, they get the mid lane turret, they got that big wave pushed in bot, and they're going to be able to come out back onto the map in a great spot here.
The truth is that SK should try and avoid fighting. They should be trying to attack these side lanes. Dagda talked about it right from the draft, which is that when you have a Lucian who's as strong as he was, you should be trying to punish the fact that Adam doesn't have a flash. You should be trying to catch this Cassiopeia on a side lane when she doesn't have that much mobility. Nocturne Lucian can be a very effective duo at just killing single targets and trying to force these 5v5s. In this situation, I mean, obviously, the Maokai ultimate over the wall, great execution for BDS to secure an easy objective. The thing that surprised me was Isma actually diving in and believing there was any realistic way of a follow-up. I think it's too hard. SK don't have the CC to lock down an Ezreal and a Rakan. So, yeah, I think if SK keep falling into the trap of going for these 5v5s, it's going to be a difficult game for them. But I still think there's ways that SK can win.
Definitely are, but I mean, maybe shoring... I'd love to hear what communication sounds like. Because again, a relevance ult comes in afterwards, doesn't it? Isma dives in, as you're saying, Betty. And there's a lot to break down from these past couple of fights, where for SK now, they've lost that gold edge, and one thing is for sure, BDS are equal at the 23-minute mark. I'm seeing 2-item Ezreal heading on to 3. I'm seeing a 3-item Cassiopeia, no boots. But I'm seeing Rod of Age is now fully stacked as well, and Nuke is in a very good spot with a bounty on his head to boot.
And it's a bit of an early reset from BDS coming up to Dragon. Means that they're able to get a ton of vision in the spot side jungle. Adam should be able to make his way back.
Is there enough damage? Culling says maybe yes. I mean, Nisqy on top of him, but Adam survives for now with 2 items on his head too.
But you're seeing exactly what we're talking about, right? Yeah, I mean, Nisqy is doing a good job here. I think that they need to keep him isolated in the side lane as much as they can so that he can try and do some serious damage to these outer towers. Of course, Irrelevant is forced to play defensively on the bot side of the map, and Nisqy now respects, okay, I've spent a lot of time here. We don't have that much control. I need to back off. But this is the type of play that I want to see more from SK.
It also draws BDS up to that top side because they have to protect Adam, which might actually give SK a bit of an opportunity to lean in towards the river if they want to. They have... left Nisqy up on that top side though, so it may just be a trade on Dragon for that top tier 2, which I like from SK. I think use the fact you have those early dragons in your favor, but it's always risky giving this many Infernal Dragons over to the enemy team.
They do like stats, especially on that Ezreal, on that Cassiopeia. As you guys were saying, SK gonna isolate top. At least getting the inner turret is a trade, a gold trade at that, but right now, we're looking towards the Baron sitting there and waiting for one more mistake, and already mentioned the Dragon stats that will lead to a third for either of these teams next.
Ultimately, BDS find themselves in a very comfortable spot in the game. You guys have already ran through all the itemization that we see on our screen.
Yes, we did.
And it becomes a neutral point now where Baron becomes obviously a key objective, trying to steal away each other's camps by prodding and pushing into the enemy side of the map. Ski, fishing.
Yeah, he is indeed. I mean, Labrov just gets on out, but he's got Sheo to support him with Adam walking down too.
But again, now it's BDS that have the waves in their control. It's their turn to move into SK side of the jungle, and Isma needs to blast Cone out to safety.
Okay, just in the nick of time.
And it becomes significantly harder for Isma to find these moments to use the ultimate now. You want to be in the lead, so you're the one drawing BDS around the map. And when they group up, what does Isma do? They're just being zoned off.
I like their siege a lot better. Not just because of Maokai, but again, I guess it helps when you have a little bit more range in your kit, as Adam is going to TP to save mid, so that said siege can't work for SK.
And Rahel just has to back off. They know that BDS can come through the jungle and collapse on the mid, so BDS managed to hold on to a lot. You can look at Kai'Sa. Imagine is going to go collect that bot wave and just say, actually, they're going to send Adam to collect that. But overall, BDS, they find that one window of opportunity, and now it's a slow, controlled game for them trying to close this one out.
And it's, if you assume that everyone is playing perfectly, and they find themselves in a team fight, you would just give BDS the advantage, right?
Yep.
Which is why, if you were to have like a meter as to like who had the advantage in this game, then it'd be scaling significantly towards BDS, because it feels like we're getting closer to things like a Baron is going to be the key objective, a Dragon is going to be the next thing that these teams fight over. So SK need to find a pick. They need to punish BDS, catch them off guard, catch them in a rotation. Just be careful about situations like this. Nuke does have the TP available.
Poke lands from Ice on the back end. Luon has Warmogs, and I believe activation is there with Celestial Blessing as well, so for now he'll be okay. But BDS continue to envelop the side of the jungle and clear out vision, while Baron starts getting more and more ghostly with not a blue ward in sight.
Yeah, they do have to be a little careful, because turning off the lights by Nocturne also makes it a little bit more difficult for Nuke to try and teleport into a good situation.
True, that's a good point.
I do get a little nervous when they're that pushed up, but especially with the flash with Luon ups, but SK not willing to pull the trigger just yet. They continue to get pushed back, but I think it is just kind of a hang on, wait for BDS. Like, we know we can just play for objectives, and they don't want to overextend at any point in time.
Rahel is very close to ticking over to 15, but Ice is just as close to ticking over to 16. Now the Baron is being started. Cassio, as we know, a very fast Baron taker, and SK have no information. They see nothing.
Absolutely nothing. I mean, Luon will be first to charge in. Now the blue ward's there. Paranoid, as you said so rightfully, Dagda turns off the lights. Snake Scrap zones out again. He's trying to fly on in, looking for the steal, but he's rooted midway. Ain't no steal with a smite in play as BDS lock it down, but Nuke already dying. Shows that SK might have something in the fight, but they're poked out. The range too much, and SK, they have to get out before they stay in the way of Ice.
They execute the dive by getting the kill onto Nuke, which is a good way to start the fight, but they can't continue it. The Baron has been lost. Ice has a lot of safety and protection and has a lot of HP, which means that SK, with all of their tools now used, will be happy with a kill, but ultimately the Baron dropping means another tower falls.
And especially with a minute until Dragon, you get to reset, use that Baron buff as BDS to push in waves and deny access to SK to the river, so nicely done by BDS. And I mean, SK, at this stage, they know something's up. You can see the blue ward goes down, but there's little that they can do. The ultimate from Maokai buys some space, but Isma ends up having to send himself in, can't actually get in for the smite, and Rahel does get the kill on towards Nuke, but there's so much damage coming through from Ice and even from Adam in this situation that SK just have to turn tail and get on out of there.
It's like every time I watch Adam, he becomes slightly more unkillable as well. And remember that Irrelevant didn't have the Rabadons before that fight. Picked it up afterwards too, so one element taken away as SK now look for something in the bush. But they get a Bindi, they walk out, they have to pull that out, and for now, 20 seconds till the Infernal Dragon comes out, and this will be the third one. BDS walking in, remember again, the fights have been good for them so far, but the culling from Nisqy says, hey Labrov, what do you reckon? As SK now repositioning the river, but BDS are finding an angle.
Notice that SK have completely abandoned the mid-wave. They're willing to sacrifice it to give themselves access to this Dragon. It's Adam that's zoning Irrelevant away from the flank, who has secured level 16. All 3 points in the ultimate. Rahel's going to push out bot. This objective, again, it's kind of BDS's playground here. SK need to find that pick.
SK lose this fight, that could be game.
Boy.
BDS can just run down mid.
Noxious Blast slows it down. Paranoia there as well. Trisha Brush misses this time as Luon gets a Shattering Strike, but the Nature's Grasp again tries to find a target, but it's enough to zone away. The power of Maokai, ladies and gentlemen, is again shown.
Yeah, it was so risky for SK, because if they actually lose this fight, there's a wave in mid, BDS can run it down the end, but now Nisqy might be
Twisted
dead.
Advance is a lock on, he's charmed up, easy again, Equalizer. Turns it around though as BDS start burning down, but not before they get the kill. Rahel has to flash away because Ice is turning and burning his own. That feels like a real rumble as Adam gets soloed. How? What? Cassante! Again!
And that's three members. 3 members only end up dropping, but that's going to be enough with the Baron, and BDS is back. They set their sights on the base, and they're looking to secure game 1.
What a turn of events. I mean, it's been a strange game, hasn't it? Because SK's dominance in the early game, we were talking them up for the first 15 minutes, but all it took was a classic BDS fight, a classic BDS turn. Knowing their comp well, and I think, again, playing their comp damn well, too, as SK getting aggressed on for their Nexus turret. I'm not sure if it's going to end here, but at least with mid turret being harassed, too. They'll have double inhibitor down. Irrelevant and Rahel will respawn, but this game feels very much in the bin, much like it has for the past 15.
Because all you have to do as BDS now is 5-man top, Sheo ults the tower, and everyone in SK has to completely disappear, because you can just see how strong it is in this fight.
Nisqy just overstays a little too long, uses the E, which means that Maokai can set up the play. He's forced to flash out, and the Rumble ultimate is good, but the defenses that they have, like, this is a great example of the range being such a big problem, right? SK just can't really commit to the fight. And Adam, meanwhile, gets a solo kill onto Irrelevant on the top side.
It wasn't even close.
And we kind of set up the story from draft where it's like, okay, SK have a composition that is inherently hard to play. You have to leverage your early game strength, and you have to snowball off the line priority that you have. And up until 19 minutes into the game, it was their game. But that a single fight is all it takes to swing the entire thing. And BDS, they kept it simple, they kept it clean, and they were able to turn this game around at the drop of a hat.
Because something I loved, we were talking about during the week when, you know, all casters have their lovely picnic party and we sit down and we talk about the teams, was we're talking about SK and their individuality, right? Their strength. This comp reflects that really well, I think. And again, plays into the strength that Nisqy, Irrelevant, have in their laning phase. Rahel and Luon have brought to the team. We've got that individuality, but it is, again, just the burden of execution and the mistake that has really punished them at the start of this series.
But that's the thing, it's been the coordination that has had SK struggle, and now it feels very much like it doesn't matter what LFL team it is, Karmine Core, or if it's BDS, they're going to struggle to close out when they get these early leads.
Dagda, I don't know if they're lucky for that. Oh, Swiss, as we go for Luon on the backside, and there's a good lockdown, at least set up this time, but who's going to get on in? Rahel's exhausted immediately in BDS. It just feels like there's not enough damage to contend with them right now. Irrelevant burns, cooks, but that guy's going in the bin. You do not eat burnt toast, and BDS know it. Game 1's going to end with a triple kill going over to Ice. And it might not be the hyper carry, but I still see a true carry on the AD carry once again for BDS in Game 1.
Ice looks spectacular. BDS having a phenomenal comeback fight, and they will take game number 1 from SK.
BDS, they don't do anything overcomplicated, right? They draft a scaling composition.
Well said.
They concede the early laning phase, and they went for one dangerous fight around the grubs, which could have cemented their demise. But ultimately, they were able to punish the fact that SK couldn't set up the fights properly, and they lead the series 1-0.
Well, it's a good opener at least past the 15-minute mark, but we'll see if SK can bounce back and hold on to their lead running into Game 2 of this elimination series.
Done?
Done.
There we go.
Break?
Break.
Even the biggest champ needs a break.
Red Bull gives you wings.